Welcome everyone to the ChessKid Youth Championship Under 16 division. It is so great to have you join us today. I am FIDE Master Mike Klein, better known as Fun Master Mike on the ChessKid website, and I'm here with my good friend and the most decorated female player in Indonesian history, International Master Irene Sukandar. Irene, say hi to everybody.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much, Mike. It's the best introduction I've got so far. And I'm doing well. How are you, Mike? I'm so excited today because, well, I did the first batch of the under 13 and it was too short of an entertainment for me. Today we're going to have fun. We will have two groups of the under 16 with you, Mike. I'm just going to very looking forward to every single game that the kids are going to play.
I am too. We do have one player who's playing in both. We'll get to that in a minute. I skipped the fireworks celebrations and woke up early for this one. So let's take a look at what everybody is going to be able to see today in the ChessKid Youth Championship, or as I'm calling it, the 2034 World Championship Preview. I'm making a bit of a bold statement by saying that, but let's take a look at the action today. We have 6 players per group. They are going to play a double round robin. As you can see there, 3+1 time control. So there's going to be not a lot of break in the action. And as Irene saw last week in the under 13 division, the top 2 advance to the semifinals. And Irene, what's that special rule at the bottom there?
Wow, this is actually my favorite rule, that there is going to be no draw offers throughout the entire game. So if the players are going to make a draw, it's going to be from perpetual checks or repetition, and I think that's pretty much it, or stalemate.
I love it. Maybe we'll introduce this in the entire Chess.com server. No, just kidding, of course. I think that would be a bit much. I think there is a time and place in chess for a draw, but that day is not today. There's going to be some fighting chess. And honestly, I think that's how these kids play. We're not going to see any short draws anyway. And in fact, we have disallowed it. So pretty cool stuff. We've got players from all over the world. This is actually group 1 of 2. There's going to be another group starting at 1 p.m. Eastern time, which is in a few hours. But of course, this is the match that we're focusing on at the moment. You have to be under 16 to be invited. Players were invited by basically FIDE rating. Some of them are very active on Chess.com. And let's actually take a look at one of these players now. Irene, please introduce us to this woman who is, I believe, making her Chess.com debut. Irene, what have you got for us?
Well, we have my favorite player of the field, Liu Miaoyi from China, and she is the reigning Chinese women's champion, and thus she's going to participate in her first Olympiad, representing China in the Budapest Olympiad 2024. And well, we know that she's currently the top-rated girl under 18. I just take a look at the World Under 20 for the girls, and I mean, she's going to make it because those 3 girls above her, they're going to be above 20 years old next year. And well, as you said, she doesn't have any Chess.com games yet, and this is going to be her debut.
Yeah, one gets the feeling that if there was still a wild card in the candidates, that FIDE might have invited her just because her rise has been like so quick and so incremental. So don't be fooled by that rapid rating, by the way. That's her FIDE rapid rating, and a lot of youth players just haven't played very many rapid events. That's very, very deceiving, and we're very happy to have her join us. Only female player in the field. Irene, I understand why. You've already got your rooting favorite, but pretty cool for her to make her Chess.com debut here. I believe she is playing from China. So do you happen to know where in China she lives, just by chance?
I don't, but I know that she has a complete chess family, especially her mother, who is also a WGM, who travels a lot with her, and just in the past 2 years, they've been doing a lot of European tours. So that's why she's just going to be just rising and rising. And well, currently, I believe she's in the top 5 probably, or top 6 in the Chinese top woman chart. So a lot of things gonna go for her. And the next one, please introduce our player, Mike.
Real quick, we're going to actually just throw up really quick the winner of the under 13 division last weekend, Yagiz Ardagush, and that is going to be how we say his name today. Okay, we want to make him and his family happy. Yagiz Ardagush, highest rated 12-year-old in history. He's a GM elect. He crushed the field last week. He went 8 out of 10. Irene, you were there to see it. By the way, he also is the 2022 ChessKid Speed Chess Champion back when we had that event, and he's played 4,000 Chess.com games. Lu Miaoyi has played 0, but Lu Miaoyi has never been beaten on Chess.com. So games are starting really soon, but that is going to be a face to watch. He's the only player playing in the under 13 and in the under 16. I mean, very exciting stuff.
Yes, yes, and he's of course an exceptional player, very strong player, and with a lot of experience in chess.com. Hopefully, it will help him to, well, probably he's gonna cruise again to the first position, and maybe actually he's the favorite of this field. And I guess the game is going to have a liftoff soon, Mike,
Yeah.
and I'm monitoring the chat on Twitch. So for the Twitch chat, please come up with any questions or any interesting facts that you can get picked up by me, and we can tell it on the show.
It's interesting you call him the favorite. He might be. He's the youngest in the field. Remember, he played in the under 13. So it could be that the youngest is the favorite. When he did win the 2022 ChessKid Youth Chess Championship, across his 3 matches, he won something like 34 and lost only 3 or 4. And actually, the 3 or 4 points that he dropped were mostly draws. So he obliterated the field a couple of years ago. And last weekend, he won 8 out of 10 in the group play. And then he came back on Sunday. He beat Aaron Mendez in the semifinals 3-0. And he beat the Romanian super talent, Henry Tudor, 4-2 in the final. So pretty cool stuff. But we're only moments away from this double round robin taking place. 6 players going to play a total of 10 games of 3+1. It is going to come in pretty fast. The ChessKid Youth Championship will start any moment. Irene, do you still kind of feel like a young player yourself, or where are you on the spectrum there? I feel like I feel younger when I commentate on these events.
I don't know. I feel I'm so old. I mean, oh well, I was commentating for under 13, and I just cannot believe at how high level they've been playing their games, and now we are going to see under 16, and these kids are so monster. And then we have a liftoff apparently. So we have the game between Lu Miaoyi versus Zokit.
Yep, Zokit Suyarov of Uzbekistan, and we are off and running. These are the first moves ever played on Chess.com by Lu Miaoyi, and we're happy to have her. And here we go. We have ourselves a little bit of an English ready. And Irene, what do you see on the board?
Wow, this is a very flexible setup for the English, and you just have to be ready of this G4. At some point, it might be pushed there. There are so many trendy games that you're involving this push of the pawn, trying to open up the G file, and probably setting up a pawn storm. But here we see Zokit as black is trying to trade as many pieces as he can, and then try to neutralize the attack as well. So maybe after this G4 is no longer like a good move, because it's just going to spoil the structure in white's camp. So rook c1, and I think we're going to see some quiet game.
Yeah, Mia Yi had a little bit of a think there when she played Rook C1, and you're going to hear a lot of ChessKid references today because I do all the videos. In my Super King levels, I'm on video like number 200. I have a whole lesson devoted to unexpected early advances of G4. And you might think that that's crazy specific, but when you get to video number 200, you start coming up with some pretty specific ideas. And that's really thanks to computers. Computers have basically said you can play G4 and H4 at moments where, at least when I was a kid, my coach would have slapped my hand. Okay, E5, a little bit of a pawn sack. Irene, what's going on if the knight captures the pawn?
Yeah, this is a bit well. This is a dubious move, of course, because not only that the e5 pawn was hanging, c5 was I was eyeing on that pawn. Like this might be the most important pawn, and now e4. I'm not afraid to play knight d4, for example, but Miaoyi just sacrificed the knight, and now the c file is going to open. This is the only file that Zokit will try to utilize some attack because the king is still in the center. And you mentioned it so many times in your video, Mike, that you should castle, but the king is still on e1 right now, and this might be just the opportunity that Zokit is trying to get.
Yeah, I think what black wants to do is trade the light squared bishops and plant the knight on this square d3, because as you said, the e file is going to remain closed for a while. Black is playing, can I call it a reverse Danish gambit? Sacking the c pawn, sacking the b pawn, and maybe the a pawn is next. That'd be like a hyper accelerated Danish gambit. But yeah, where does this knight go? I'm not quite sure. If it goes backward, then this square is going to be really tender. So the knight hops in, rook over, as you said, Irene. Now, if things start trading, white is seriously underdeveloped, but black is also down a lot of pawns. It's the classic case of quick development versus material. Bishop c4, you don't usually put a piece on the same line as the pin is going to happen.
I think there might be some sacrifices. Knight takes e5, queen takes e5, rook takes c4, rook takes c4, and using the fact that the diagonal of a6 to f1 is gonna crumble. You can put bishop a6, you can put queen d3, and probably now after this, ooh, what's happened? You shouldn't take on b6. I think that's gonna be a waste of time for black.
So you wanted to take, and diagonal. Oh, I
Probably Queen
see.
D3 first. Queen
Right.
D3 first, and
Okay.
then yeah, Queen D3, and then Bishop A6, something like that. I mean, this is Blitz. We can have fun by sacrificing so many pieces. Yeah, the Queen is attacking C4. I know the E-file bar doesn't agree with me, but just take a look at this position. You have to come up with an exact move to better that one. So what just happened after
Let's
Queen
go back to
E5, AB castle? Uh-huh.
live position right on the board here.
Wow, so black is up a piece. Black is up a bishop, so this is already like technically winning for Zokit.
Yeah, and Irene, I apologize. We went so fast. Let's go back and see how the bishop was hung. So after castles, queen takes d2, and then, oh, I see an
Ah,
overworked
this
piece.
is the
Irene, what do you see?
tactic. Yes, rook c4. Yeah, the rook on c1 is being overloaded by so many things going on in the back rank.
Our first double exclam of the day. And if either heavy piece is captured by white, then black checkmates on the first rank. Of course, it'd be a little more aesthetic if the queen was captured, but that was the tactic missed by Miao Yi, and Zokid finds it. Let's go back to the live position here, Irene.
Mhm.
And let me get you to the live position. This should be it. Okay, but she's still fighting.
She's still fighting, and for the chat, don't be fooled by Miaoi 2400, almost 2400 rating here. She hasn't played any Chess.com games yet, so we don't know her exact ability on the blitz on Chess.com. So yeah, there are many saying that okay, it's 2400 against like almost 3000. It's one-sided game, but we'll see. I believe Miaoi, maybe this is not her game, but I believe in the 9 games to go, she will be able to bounce back and recover from this. Well, I assume this is going to be losing for her.
Yeah, we didn't want to give her the default starting rating on chess.com, which I don't know, I think is like 800 or 1200. We wanted to give her some benefit of the doubt being a WGM and the Chinese women's champion. So we gave her her FIDE classical rating as her starting rating. And also, it wouldn't really be fair to Zokid if her rating was like 1000 and she won or drew again, because then, you know, he's worked this hard to get a 2970 rating. Okay, you guys get the point. We're trying to be fair to everybody. And she will definitely earn her chess.com rating as the day goes on.
Yeah, exactly. And I just can't wait for her debut as well in the Olympiad because, well, she reminds me a lot of Ho Yifan. And then you know how Ho Yifan has turned into the chess world these days, being world number one for so many years. And I believe China has lots of good generations to come. And Miaoi is a very good example of it.
I wonder in this position if black will move this rook to the 5th rank and then start threatening things like rook takes g2, and after king take, oh, he played rook g2 anyway. You don't even need the extra rook in the game. Oh, bishop g4, bishop
Bishop
f3.
G4. And
Yeah.
and yeah, there's rook C1 right now.
Rook
I saw
c1.
this. And bishop f3, yeah, this is amazing. And then mate on h1. Yeah,
Wow.
this could happen before, but without the inclusion of rook on c8. So I think Zokit called it very timely because now this sacrifice worked. And I think we still have one game going on. It's Ivan Zemlyansky versus Reza.
Exactly. So Zokid gets 1 point for the win. I'm going to give +1 for the style. No, I don't have that kind of power, but very impressive to sack 2 rooks when you don't even need to win the game. But okay, our fans, I'm sure, loved it.
Yes. All right. So on this game, it's bishop versus knight. Usually in the end game, bishop is better, but white has lots of extra pawns, and yeah, I think that's the reason why white is better in this one. And then f pawn is just cruising over and threatening for some promotion at some point. I was thinking of promotion, but Ivan is thinking about getting black some checkmate. The king is just marching forward.
Yeah, in fact, I think it's close to mate here because the black rook is so out of play after a move like king g6. But one of the two, I think, is almost certainly going to happen, a mate or a promotion. And in fact, we had a resignation by Reza. So we have Ivan getting a win. We have Zokid getting a win. And also getting a win was Yuj. We didn't see Yuj's game, but Yuj picks up right where he left off last weekend and wins his first game over Artyom Bardik. So pretty impressive stuff. And we are on to round two. And let's take a look at Yuj. We're going to take a
Yes,
look
let's
at,
do it.
yeah. You got a really good look at Yuj last week. I got a good look at Yuj 2 years ago when he beat everything in sight in the ChessKid Speed Chess Championship. He is the future of Turkish chess. He is a GM elect. And this is going to be a battle of two winners from the first round. So we have Zokid versus Yuj. We have a Caro-Kann, which I think has become the internet's chess opening with everyone playing it. And here we are.
I think thanks to Levy as well, because he's been playing this Caro-Kann a lot off and on the board, because he's coming back to play live tournaments these days. And yeah, but apart from that, Caro-Kann has been quite a trendy opening as well. Back in the day, you use it just to kind of play a defensive opening or something like that, just to make a draw. But these days you play Caro-Kann to win. So it is how flexible and how evolved Caro-Kann these days. And now we are seeing the advanced variation, and you have this sort of like a mountain of pawns in the center, and then black will just slowly develop his minor pieces and wait for the king where to castle. So in this position, a5 is already there, so I would assume that the king eventually will just do the short castle.
Yeah, I agree with you. And just one more note on the Caro-Kann. Internet, please check my facts. But when the wonder kid Faustino Oro beat Hikaru Nakamura this week in blitz battles, I believe Hikaru played the Caro against Fausti. But Internet, please check my research on that. We are back to the live action. I've never seen this A4, A5 space scanning idea, but I kind of like it. Black looks cramped all around the board. But again, if you're going to play the Caro as black, you're kind of used to being cramped. It happens.
Yeah, how the game develops, I think this looks like the worst version of Slav. Okay, bishop is on g6, not on c8, so maybe that's a plus in the black's position. But now it turns as if this was a d4, the first move d4 opening, because it looks like, you see how the triangle in the center and so on. And then I think thanks to the pawn on a5 and the pawn is already on a6, now black is a bit crumbled. But again, the plus is the bishop is on g6, so black might be able to get away with something.
Right, and I think the rook went to d1 partially was to try to prevent black from playing c5 to gain space, but black moves the queen off of the d file, and I believe this is black's main idea, is eventually to play the move c5 and weaken that center structure. So we have instead, black has willingly given himself a very weak a6 pawn, and actually Yuj is down about a minute on the clock. I would not have expected that. Zokid has turned out to be a very fast player in both games 1 and 2 that we've seen.
Yeah, just from the first game that we saw Zokid versus Miaoyi, we saw that Zokid is a very tactical player. So I don't think he minds sacrificing a pawn like that in return for activity, because now also the square d5 is a very important square, and he allows himself to occupy that square with the knight if he wishes to. But of course, he's just taking his time, and now he occupies it. And with also some drawback in the position for white here with the double pawn on the f file, things are going to get messy, I would say. f6, f5 might happen anytime soon to open up the position.
Yeah, very interesting. And we already saw a pretty devastating attack by Zokid in round 1 against the king. This time, Yuj is going to try to turn the tables with some sort of attack on the king side eventually with that weakened pawn structure. Zokid is the number 10 player in the world that was born in the year 2009. That may not seem like much, but remember, Uzbekistan came out of nowhere to win Olympiad gold a couple of years ago. So there is some sort of farm system. Ivan Sokolov has got a little thing going in Uzbekistan, and Zokid may just be the next super talent from Uzbekistan.
Yeah, Uzbekistan is the new powerhouse in chess these days. Of course, all the prodigies team up and just won the Chennai Olympiad 2022. I mean, it's also a very good sign for the country itself. The government has been quite supportive in chess, and they just now seeing the result. And we have a lot of trades here in the game between Zokid versus Yuj, and this endgame it's so much pleasant for black. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, totally agree. Black has solved most of the problems. I think the d4 pawn is going to be every bit as weak as the c6 pawn. f4 is just going to be a weakness forever. f3 is going to be a weakness. And this is kind of what players go for in the Caro-Kann, is just give their opponent some permanent weaknesses, play a long game. This is just a little bit annoying, but I would take black every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
That's very funny. Yes. And now, wow, Yuj is just going to I mean, this is technically winning for him, and he has to be careful there because in some of his games in under 13, he was winning, but he just missed a few things, and therefore he scored only 8 out of 10, not a perfect score. He lost twice. So he has to be quite careful here. But okay, in this position, I don't think there's so many risks on the board for Black. Black will just try to collect as many pawns as he can, and probably along the way also trying to get some checkmating idea in the back rank, because it looks like the king on g1 and the knight on f1 and now the knight on e3, they don't really come off as a perfect pair in this position, and rook b4, it's gonna come up with rook b1 soon. So yeah, things are looking really good for Yos.
I think a bit of maybe a little bit of a miss here, though, back in this position, because knight to e3 stops the rook from going to the first rank. I think if you play rook d1 right away, white is almost crippled. And the knight is still going to get to f4 and the pawn's going to come here. That might have been the better move order. I'm not 100% sure.
You made a very good point. Yes, I totally agree with you. Yeah, rook d1 is the better move, and then everything is tied down in the back rank, and then you can continue with your initial plan before. But now, yeah, black is maintaining the advantage, but with more developed pieces, knight on e3, rook on d4, white is trying to get some counter attack.
Yeah. I think white is actually, I'm not going to say happy, but as opposed to being paralyzed, yeah, as you know, Irene, when you're worse, better to have activity when you're worse than just have nothing to do. And white has gone for some sort of activity. I do have a Chessable course I'm going to record at some point called What to Do When You're Losing. And this is a good example. White might very well lose, but at least white is causing black some problems. And remember, elongating the game is pretty helpful when you're up 40 seconds on the clock. It's only a 1 second increment.
Exactly, yeah. So Zokit has to keep pushing black on the time, because he has more advantage on the time compared to when he is in the on the board. And now, yeah, he's pausing a bit. What is going on?
I'm not sure. I actually do know that Yagiz is adjusting his camera. Maybe the sun's coming up in Turkey and he's trying to get some light on his face. So in addition to the chess problems, he's doing some technology for us here. But I don't see any moves coming, and I think that's my fault. A little bit of an operator error there. Okay, we're back to the live position. Look at this knight. This knight has almost nowhere to go. And if it becomes a two-pawn advantage, almost all king and pawn in games are winning. And I don't see where that knight can go. In fact, white lost the game. I do apologize. We didn't get to the end there. I'm going to take the L on that one, Irene. But it was a better endgame for black. Yagiz does go to 2-0. And do we have any more games going on in round two?
Yeah, we'll see. I think every game has finished and they're getting ready to go to round three. Man, time flies so fast when you are really enjoying all these games, and we don't even see all of the games. We saw only one or two games per round. But yeah, who are we going to see next, Mike?
Well, we haven't seen Ivan Zimlansky at all. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that would be a good place to go. If I check the results, we know that Yagiz has 2-0 and Ivan does too. So we would be doing a disservice if we did not look at Ivan's game. And Ivan is going to have black against Yagiz. So actually, Ivan, I mean, this is the easiest question in the world. We have two kids with 2-0, and one of them we haven't seen before. So Yagiz will take white against Ivan Zimlansky. And that's going to be a battle for who goes to the first break with the lead.
Yes, and both of them have more than 3,000 rating on Chess.com. How crazy is that? And they're all under 16. Mike, what is the highest rating that you can get on Chess.com?
Well, I don't know what the peak. I know that Hikaru and Magnus sometimes trade barbs there. 32 something might be the peak. Again, I think the internet knows a little bit more than me about the absolute highest rating, but they're getting up there. And Yagiz is actually under 13. So
Yeah,
pretty
that's
amazing
right.
stuff that he's got in this rating. If he wins this game, I think he might creep above 3,000 while Ivan stays above 3,000. We have almost a whoa. Okay, we do have an early G4. I was going to say it's like a Grand Prix attack, but the bishop's back on E2. G4, Irene, you've got to be happy to see that.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Apart from trendy variations, this type of idea with G4 is becoming popular these days too. Like players try to incorporate this idea with G4 in many of the variations these days. So I'm very happy to see it here. It shows like a lot of fighting spirit for white, and he is rightly so, because he's playing white pieces here and he is playing against a Sicilian. And this type of Sicilian is a close Sicilian, but you can just see this G4 is signaling that white wants wants to attack, and black has quite a solid defense around the king as well. So who attacks or who defends better, we'll see, because it's still too early to call who is better in this position.
Yeah, I wanted to see what would happen if e5 had happened with the rook back here. The knight would have gone to d5, and then I'm not quite sure, but we're past that point. Here comes the pawn storm. Black luckily has no pawns advanced, so there are no targets yet. And often what that means is if you push and you push, black will just coolly push past, but there's more pawns coming forward. The question is, can white find a breakthrough, or is white overextending himself too much? This is a very sort of mechanical way of getting f4 in. Yagiz just put his knight back on d2 just to get f4 in. So there's not a lot of pieces joining the attack. It's all pawn right now. And I think that Yagiz needs to get some of his bigger guys in the game.
Exactly. Not only the major pieces, but also the minor pieces, because we can see only the bishop on f3 is on the king side. He has to somehow convert all the pieces to the king side, because this is going to be his battlefield. And meanwhile, Ivan is trying to play in the center and on the queen side, trying to give some counter attack that way. So white cannot attack in a pleasant way. There should be some counter going on somewhere on the board. And now bishop g2 stepping backward, and then probably giving the square for the queen to go to g4, and slowly putting all the pieces to the king side.
This knight has gone around the world. Let's follow this knight's journey. F3, D2, C4, E3, and we all know he wants to go to G4 and then H6. That would be amazing. I was actually wondering if black was going to go crazy and play H5 to keep the knight out of the square and to try to open up this diagonal. F5, kind of similar idea, and probably a little bit more in the realm of sanity, keeping the knight out of G4 before it ever gets there. And yeah, I actually think if you start taking en passant, then why isn't it let me take en passant? The knight went back to G3. But if you ever take en passant and the bishop takes, then H4 is going to be mortally weak.
Yes, and also we have to note that out of 19 moves already, there is no trade at all. Pawns or pieces, they are still on the board, and it gives more complex to the position, of course, because you still have to think of all the pieces and how are you going to think on this one actually as black? Because f5 is already there, knight g3 is there, and okay, how long are we going to go until there's a trade?
Yeah, great question. So chat, why don't you let us know? We're on move 20. Can we make it 10 more moves, let a trade? You might think these pawns are definitely going to trade, but I don't know, because pawn up and then the knight has to sit back on e8 for a long time. I think
you might want to close down.
Be better.
Yeah. Yeah, you might want to close down the center anyway. After d5, you just put e5, and you're also avoiding the trade there. Man.
Yeah, and I don't know who's going to occupy the H file first. I think white doesn't want to shut down everything. But yeah, interesting idea. E5, shut down the center, then eventually trade. But it's not like white's heavy pieces are ready to get to the H file yet anyway. So it's not clear that the opening of the H file does a whole lot for white. But I can see white trying to get a rook to H6. And yeah, I'm not sure what else to do besides get a rook to H6. But we'll see how this is very interesting, because the whole battle will change based on which pawns are pushed. Okay, so our first trade came at move 23, in case anybody was guessing move 23.
Okay, so h6, knight e8, and we have a trade on d5 and queen b3. So white is attacking the d5 now. Can we take it? Because there's knight a5. You have to be really careful on that, and that's why black was stepping out with the king to h8. And this is going to be losing for white if it happens. So you have to be careful not to take it too prematurely. And what should white do first? Because d5 is always going to be a weakness.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to take it under favorable circumstances. And black very cleverly plays the move king h8. Now, the computer doesn't like it. I wonder if there was a way to capture that pawn anyway. If we go back to this position, yeah, I still think it's dangerous to capture with either of your minor pieces, because it certainly looks like knight a5 is the way to go. But also backing up away from the pawn is a little bit strange. I think maybe white should just get a new piece in the game. But let's go back to our live position after queen c2. Yagiz is behind a little bit of time after being a little bit ahead in the middle game.
I think the idea of queen c2 is you want to play b3 followed by bishop b2, because the bishop has to deflop somewhere, and deflopping to d2 doesn't really have any good idea for the bishop. So putting it on the diagonal where the opponent's king is, I think that's a very good idea. But now there's already a d4 push, and knight c4 looks like a very natural move to make, but apparently computer doesn't like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do like your idea of getting the bishop to b2. I had missed that. Black was keen to it and played the pawn to d4 as quickly as possible. And now White has to decide if he's going to give up this really strong dark squared bishop. Otherwise, you just got to leave the pawn on c3. So I think you've got to, but now d4 is owned by Black, and the tables seem to be shifting for Black a little bit, although the rook has to guard the bishop, and it does have one square to do so, but all you need is one. Very tricky. This knight could be coming back to e2. Not right now. I realize that's the worst move on the entire chessboard, but at some point, White's going to try to rip open the diagonal again.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so this is actually a very interesting position. I mean, who is attacking who? Oh, bishop g5. What a sacrifice! But does it work?
Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe you're just going to try to win on time while your opponent tries to figure it out. And Yagiz does not even try to hold the knight, just gives the knight back, and the queen has to run
Oh
away. So
no!
Black is going to get the
There
piece
is
back.
okay. So white is totally winning. I thought there was some tactic with knight f7 and so on, but okay, taking d5 is actually a blunder because the king was on g2. But anyway, knight f7 is final on the board, but I don't think this is the right timing because now Black is
Yeah, only
firing
2
back, and now
seconds.
Black, yeah. Oh wow,
Knight
what a
back. It's
game!
unbelievable. Yagiz figured out to give the piece back, and now he's got 1 second to play g6 and try to get a checkmate before he loses on
Oh
time.
my gosh!
It's going to work.
Oh, and then queen
Queen
g7 is coming up
g6.
soon. Queen g6 and knight
Yeah, now that was
f7.
stopped. There's got. I think there was probably a knight
Oh,
f7 tactic and a rook e8, but
okay.
okay, this is probably working. And he
Yep.
decides to play the end game, but now with the 1 second increment, he should be totally fine. Very cool play with 1 second on the clock.
Wow.
Irene, that is 2 straight games where Yagiz has willingly accepted a lot less time, but was able to convert. This one was a lot more dramatic.
This is too dramatic. Like if you see the info bar, it is like a roller coaster. Like at one point White was winning, at one point Black was winning, and then at one point it was equal, and then back White is winning, and so on. Wow, what a roller coaster game by Hughes and Ivan. And I mean, this is the way to play. They're above 3,000, and then they just showed us a very entertaining game.
That was quite a start. The first section is in the books of our first group of the ChessKid Youth Championship under 16 division. We just saw a battle of the 2 leaders, and now that means, of course, we have 1 leader. We have no draws, we have 1 leader. And if we take a look at the standings going into this first section, we have 1 player on 3-0. That would be Yagiz Erdogush, okay? Please, Erdogush
Yes,
family, I'm doing my
and
best, okay?
you're doing fine, Mike. Yes, on the second place, it's sharing between Reza Mahdavi and Ivan Semyansky. And Zokit, Suyarov, and Lu Miaoyi, they're on 1, and Artem Bardik is still on 0.
Absolutely. So that was pretty great stuff. Before we go to break, I do want to remind you about some very exciting things coming up on Chess.com. Looking to put your bullet chess skills to the test? You can compete in today's community bullet brawl arena and win a diamond membership. Anyone is eligible to throw their hat in the ring and prove their speed chess prowess. All you have to do is join the community club on Chess.com and register for the arena. Use the command !CBB in chat for all of the details. Community bullet brawl. You guys want to join that? All right, as we go to break, we'll come back. We'll check the second section. We'll see if Yagiz Erdogush is able to win his second group stage in the ChessKid Youth Championship. So don't go anywhere, as we will see if he's able to lead wire to wire. We'll be back shortly with Irene's account. Well, it's time. Fun Master Mike is here for the worldwide premiere of Sour Chess. My opponent today is going to be Inya. Inya, how are you?
I'm good.
Ready to eat some sour stuff?
Yeah.
Do you like sour stuff?
No, I don't.
When you capture a piece, you get to make your opponent eat something sour. We have a whole range, and we're going to get to that. All right, are you ready, Inya?
Yeah.
All right, well, good luck. All right, let's get some sour chess on. We're going to save the Japanese umabashi for the victor. Inya, where are we going first? Okay, we're going to go for the toxic waste. All right, so toxic waste, Fun Master Mike is going to dig in. It could be like a watermelon type color. Let's see. Okay, I think you have to get past the first part. It's definitely getting worse. I think we're going to continue the game with this in my mouth. It'll take a while. Okay, here we go. Guess what? What? You're not done yet, my little lady. This could be worse because, okay, that smell, if it's soft, I'm not sure if it's soft. But if it is, you can like bite like a half of it or a quarter of it. Is it soft? Okay, it is soft. Let's see how this goes. Okay, her lips are blue. And pickles aren't even blue. Yeah, okay, I don't know who your dentist is, but I think he's gonna stay in business after this. It'd be funny if I couldn't get the jar open, right? This looks terrible. Your favorite one. You do not have to eat the whole thing, but you have to take a bite that shows me that you've chewed some. Umabashi. I didn't know this word existed until we started planning this video.
This looks really bad.
Just pinch off. I have no idea what it looks like. It was a plum, okay? It looked like a real piece of fruit. Yeah, it's hard to show. We'll show the camera. It's gelatinous and it's probably terrible. All right, let's see what we got. This is the conclusion. Is it terrible?
It's terrible, yeah.
Is it worse than the pickle?
Yeah.
Really? I have to say, thank you, Inya. You're a good sport. You are part of history. This is the first ever game of sour chess. Welcome back, world, to the ChessKid Youth Championship under 16 division. I am FIDE Master Mike Klein, along with International Master Irene Sukander. We are back to start round 4. We've got a 10-round event here, a double round robin, and they're not just playing for a title today and tomorrow. Irene, they're actually playing for a big chunk of money. What's on the line?
Wow, you know what, Mike? We have a total prize fund of 10,000 for the under 16, and the first winner will get 3,000. How amazing is that?
That's pretty cool. Let's put the cross table up there really quick before round 4 starts. Now, Yuj already won like $1,500 last week, and I forget what first place was worth in the under 13, but that's a lot of halva. I think I was Googling a Turkish dessert before I went to break there, but it's not my favorite, but I'm just guessing that maybe he likes it. So we will see if he's able to add a little bit. I think it's probably going to go into his chess training career, but however he wants to use the money, or whoever the winner ends up being, everybody gets something just for participating, but 3,000 to first place, and we will see if Yuj is able to continue. He's only got to finish under the top 2 advance, so you don't need to win today. Okay,
Yes.
and let's take a look at somebody, Irene, we've not seen yet. That would be Artyom Bardik. We want to get to everybody at least once, and Artyom is playing one of the second place people, ChessKid Suyarov, and we have ourselves, looks like a French. I didn't catch the beginning, but it's got to be a French.
It is a French, yes, indeed. And well, Queen G4, G6, this is a very direct approach to this French. Usually you also want to play King F8, but well, this is equally good. And what we're going to see here is, while white is attacking on the king side, black will try to attack on the queen side. So I'm going to promise you, Mike, this is also going to be a very, very interesting game, because both of them have the opposite side to attack.
Yeah, this is a crazy way of shutting down the king side. First h6, then f5. If white had taken en passant, black would have taken back with tempo. So black has managed to shut down the king side. Now, black has pushed the f-pawn without my written permission. That's my second ChessKid reference. Both me and Peshka here are a little suspicious about this idea, but it's actually working out. Peshka, our ChessKid mascot, he's going to take a little break and have some coffee. But I would say if you're black and you shut down that king side, you're pretty happy to start this game.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, in this position now, in the long run, the pawn on e6 might be the weakness, but I think it's going to be, well, I thought it's going to be quite a long story to go, but I think we're going to see some endgame soon, since the queens are already traded off, and knight e2 offering another trade, and was accepted by black. And now, who is going to be better in this position? I'm not too sure.
I'm a pawn grabber. I'm taking the pawn. I realize the dark square is going to be weak forever. I don't know if white sacked the d pawn on purpose or not, but probably, because it does get rid of those double pawns. And white is basically saying my bishop pair, my control of the dark squares is at least worth a pawn. I don't know. Again, you made me pick a color. I'll say black. Eval bar says that white has complete compensation. By the way, I just texted a grandmaster friend yesterday, and I realized that on the iPhone, you can actually type the infinity symbol for unclear. This is like, for those of you born before Irene was born, we have infinity over equals, which means with compensation. So I realize I'm speaking to a little bit of an older audience when I say that.
That's funny. Yeah, but I think I like your point on explaining this position, Mike, because yeah, now white is having fun with all the deflop pieces, the pair of bishops, although white is down a pawn, but the two bishops are totally compensating it, and also the rooks are coming to play. And yeah, no one is going to challenge the dark square bishop, so that is a very good plus in the white's position.
And just to bring up to our audience, white was never interested in playing bishop b5 check because bishop d7, and black would do anything to trade off his worst bishop. Also, in general, if you have the bishop pair, or maybe I'll go the other way, if you're fighting the bishop pair, you should try to trade one set of bishops. Now, this looks like a win for black. Black has activated the worst bishop. Black has gotten rid of the bishop pair. And yeah, of course, his dark squares are weak, but white's light squares are equally weak. And black still got the extra pawn. Now, I don't know if it's winning, because again, it's still opposite colored bishops, but the last 2-3 moves, Irene, tell me if you agree, I think have been a net positive for black.
Well, yes, now it is becoming the opposite colored bishop position, where we know in this type of position you have to have an active bishop, but now we see these two bishops are both active, so whose bishop is actually better, we don't know. And now we come down to the other question, whose pawn structure is better, because that will complement the bishop of white or black has. And ooh, what a move!
Bishop c5. Sorry to interrupt.
C5.
Bishop c5. And if takes, of course, rook check wins the exchange. That cannot be played in any regard. So bishop c5, and black just simply takes. Yeah, the bishop could have posted up here, and I bet we would have the same position, actually.
Yes, and now, okay, king f7. Okay, white is down a pawn on the g file, but white has more deflop pieces, the bishop and the rook, and now it's only yeah, black task is just to develop this rook h8 rook h8, and then somewhere maybe c8, maybe elsewhere, or maybe a8, and then going to the back rank, anything can do. But okay, rook c8 was chosen, and I just like black's position here. I mean, I'm just waiting for the opportunity to use my g4 pawn to go advancing to the promotion square.
I want to point something out. Usually in these positions, white would be happy to trade rooks and just play an endgame. But with this h5 pawn undefensible, white could not just play rook check and trade the rooks because the bishop would go back. Black would end up taking and have two connected pass pawns. So that was not a drawing idea for white. And now white's in big trouble because the rook is permanently tethered to this pawn. And I think, oh, rook c7. So white was offering the bishop for free. Now black is offering his rook for free to try to get the pawn to the touchdown square. Now the rook's going to d1 with a promotion coming up.
Yes, rook going to d1, and probably after king e2, you can push any of the pawns, like c3 with the idea of rook d2. But also you can move the rook around and then use the other file to enter the back rank. So yeah, white is totally losing in this position.
I have to say, remember round one when ChessKid was up a piece and sacked two rooks to win? I'm surprised ChessKid didn't play a move like c3, but he's become the rook sack master because rook c7, offering his rook, that's his third rook sack, and we haven't even seen all of his games. So yeah, maybe we'll make a little chessable course instead of ChessKid's moves. Maybe a ChessKid course, a little mini course. But yeah, the rook's coming to b1. 10 seconds left for Artyom. Still looking for his first point of the tournament. I'm afraid it will not come here, but it looks like ChessKid's keeping pace as best he can with Yagiz.
Yes, and now rook g6, rook b1. Okay, how to stop it? And okay, he doesn't try to stop it, but now we can play g1. And if all the checks along the h8 and h7, there's queen g8, for example, because that's not going to be quite a perpetual there. And there's actually no perpetual. The king can just escape, right? f7, e8, d7, and okay, queen g8 just sealed the deal. I mean, this is enough to win the game.
Yeah. This was the wise choice. For those of you in the chat arguing that black should promote tonight with check, there's a time and a place for under promotion. That was not it. Promoting to a queen, simple way to win. Let's see if we've got any other games going on. We do have one. Another player we have not seen at all yet. We have Reza Mahdavi from Iran, a FIDE master, who's got white against the tournament leader Yagiz. And Yagiz looks like he's headed for 4-0. More time and more pawns.
Yeah, more time and more pawns, exactly. And now, okay, it's 4 against 2. Okay, with the correct play, maybe white is going to be able to defend it with the correct play. But again, this is blitz, and when you're down some material, it's going to be very hard to defend. And the key thing in blitz is it's always easier to play for tactical games, tactical moves, just attacking, not defending. And I think with the experience that Yagiz has, and yeah, I think this is going to be his next win.
Yeah, just trading off his doubled pawn here. e5 is weak. Polite reminder to our audience, Yagiz is not the pronunciation. It is Yagiz. If you've never heard his name before, get to know him because you're going to be hearing a lot about him in the coming years. And in fact, if you were around last weekend, you'd probably knight g2, a very nice trade. The king must capture, and after rook takes, the pawn is mortally weak. This king might just walk himself around to e6. Or, yeah, the rook might just come to e7, and if the king goes to the wrong square, f6 might happen. f6 might still happen, by the way. Not possible right now, but Yagiz down to 1 second. Uh-oh. Hope he's got no delay on his end. He's already won one game with 1 second on his clock, and f6 does happen.
Yeah. And
rook and 2 versus rook is pretty much always the win. Yeah.
It is a win.
No,
h4, if you take then rook f3, and then you're going to a winning pawn in game there. I mean, that's a very interesting trick that Yagiz has, only a few seconds left on his clock. Okay, so this is going to be quite a technical win, but there are so many examples in this type of 2 extra pawns position where white is defending and then playing for some stalemate idea. So black has to be careful not to fall for it.
Yeah, and I should say the G and H pawns are a little bit more annoying to win with than the F and the G pawns because your king doesn't have room to hide. It's still a win, but I can tell you from a couple of embarrassing experiences, I'd rather have F and G, but I'd also rather have the 2 extra pawns. So it is going to be, oh, rook F1, look at that liquidation.
And then king G3.
Oh, king G1, H2?
King G1, king G3.
No, not H2.
Oh, H2 as well.
You're right. Promote to now under promotion. It wasn't time. He promotes the bishop, not even knight. And we need to see that because Irene, I blundered. You found it. I thought H2 was the point, but actually that loses after king takes. King G3, Irene points out. And in this position, we're either going to take the rook and promote, or if the rook saves himself, we would have had the stylish win of all stylish wins. But promoting to bishop was not a bad stylish win either. Promoting to either rook or queen would have been stalemate. If we go back to this position, so takes, push, king up, you can promote to knight or bishop. The bishop is the same color as what, Irene? Remind our audience.
Well, it is the same color as the promotion square, so technically we have the right bishop for the pawn.
Exactly. Promoting to knight would always win, but promoting to bishop maybe is technically faster. Wow, that was cool. Not only does he give us the treat of 1 second left, he sacks the rook, which, by the way, is the theme of the morning, sacking rooks, right? And he under promotes, not just for style, but because he absolutely had to. No surprise. That was the longest game of the round. Absolutely no surprise. And
make sure if you're playing on Chess.com, when you are trying to under promote, you press the Alt, because sometimes the setting that you have on your Chess.com is default promoting as a queen, right? So this is also very important whenever you're playing your online games. Try to see your setting, whether it is default as a queen, promotion as a queen, or you can just choose whenever you want it. But again, with only a few seconds left on the clock, Yus just made the right decision timely. So this is actually another thing to applaud on, not only because of his chess skill, of course, but also his technical skill on operating on within the Chess.com website and so on. So this is amazing.
Yeah. That is very important. My third ChessKid reference of the day. We have no auto queen on ChessKid because we don't want to confuse kids. Let's stay with you. Well, we want to keep things easy. Even I don't want auto queen on my settings on Chess.com. Let's stay with Yuj. We've only seen Lu Miaoyi once. This is the second time we're going to see her. Again, she's making her Chess.com debut. And we're off and running. While I check the standings real quick, Irene, catch us up on the early moves of this game.
So it's d4, d5, and then okay. So this is like the Queen's Gambit exchange, yeah, because White took on the d5 square. So okay, this is kind of like a very trendy as well these days, and very easy to go around to. And Queen c2, Bishop g5. Okay, he chose the variation that is not very popular these days, but knight b6 is always very interesting. At some point, you're just going to play c6, and then probably still doing the same thing, bishop e7, castle, but ooh, g6 is there. So I like how these two players are playing. I mean, they're very up to date with the current theory trend, and bishop f5 is there. Will Yus play bishop d3, just try to exchange the bishop that way, or will the queen move away? So yeah, we're going to see.
Yeah, I think you're giving me a lesson here, as are both these players, because when I was growing up, my coach taught me don't put a knight on b3 or b6, and don't fianchetto your bishop when it can already get out to a normal square. So I assume that, Miao Yi knows a lot more about chess than I do. I don't have to assume that I know it. But we're going to find out why these moves are all playable in this position. Of course, g6 was meant to get the bishop to a good square. If the bishop had gone to g4, there's no pin. The knight will just hop into e5, make the bishop look silly. So, of course, there are reasons for these moves. I'm worried about this knight, though. Like, if b3 happens, the knight will get shut out of the game. But we will see if that ends up being important or not. Okay, the bishop just willingly trades for the knight. Very interesting.
Yes, and this a4 is a very interesting approach as well by Yus, because he's just using the fact that the knight on b6 is not doing anything, and if it jumps over c4 square, you can just push it away by playing b3. So probably it is now the time to do something with the knight. So after a5, probably knight c4 with knight d6 with the idea of that, but this also allows Yus to play a6 to undermine the pawn structure in the queen's side. And yeah, he just did it, and now the pawn on c6 will be quite a weakness in the long term. And I just like how he plays this position, e4, breaking open the center, because the king is still on e8, and he's just one move away from castling, so he's in a better position.
Yeah, and if the queen took, it would pressure that weak c6 pawn. The knight taking also helps the rook to get to c1. And by the way, we should mention, Yuj needs to keep on winning, because hot on his heels is Ivan Zimlansky. Now, because it's a double round robin, Ivan does still control his own destiny. He will have one more game with Yuj in the second half of the event. Of course, Yuj has beaten everybody so far, so Yuj took their first head-to-head encounter. But everything to play for, you only need to finish in the top two. And I don't think Yuj has been worse this whole time from the games that we've seen. Now, rook e1 would threaten knight to d6 because that bishop is pinned. And it's also the natural move. I expect to see rook e1 in this position.
No, that's totally good move. But also we have d5. You might want to also open up the center. Yes, and then trying to get to the c6 pawn, because this pawn on d5 is untouchable because the rook on c8 is hanging, so the queen nor the pawn can take it. But I also like your move, rook e1, d5. I think white is very spoiled with choices here. Very good option that white has in this position.
Yeah, d5 is even more dynamic, and d5 was played. Well found there, Irene. Black is facing a world of problems. Underdeveloped, this pawn is weak. The pawn might just continue its march forward. Who knows? But we will see what's happening here. I don't really know what Black's supposed to do. If Black could ditch a pawn to figure out the development issues, he might. But instead he plays c5. Computer hates the move, and I think this pawn is going to keep moving forward. We should mention a brand new book from Grandmaster Marone Share, rest in peace, Marone. But somebody wrote a book about his best chess lessons, and he has something called the 20% rule. Irene, I saw him teach this lesson in person. When a pawn is on the 5th rank or beyond and is a passed pawn, pushing it is the right move at least 20% of the time. That was the lesson from the book.
I see. Wow. I think white just missed a very good tactic there by playing queen d4. You could have taken the bishop on e7, I guess, and then there is knight d6, there is rook c8, there's so many things going on. Instead of queen d4 when the queen was on d3, and then take on e7 could be... Oh, maybe this is wrong. I thought knight d6 would just seal the deal, but yeah, apparently this is not the right one.
Is this like a brilliant move, knight here? No, that's not.
No,
right.
I don't think so. There's knight d6, knight. Yeah, you just take on the queen, and then you don't have both options at the same time together. You have to pick one, whether to take on c8 or knight d6. In which case, black will be able to consolidate the position. So, although this looks like it's a great move, but apparently it's a wrong one. But now white is up a piece, and you should be able to convert this into a win very soon.
Let's very quickly see how the piece was won. The queen just took. I mean, it almost doesn't even matter how we watch it because black was so mortally underdeveloped, but d7 was a nice move. You have to capture the pawn, and it distracts the queen from protection. And even rook e1, adding insult to injury, adding that move in. And here we are at the live position. Yuj is up a piece. The a pawn is going downtown. We don't need Marone Share for this one. We know this pawn wants to come to a7. And it looks great for white. It's just going to be an easy win. And he doesn't even have 1 second. He's got 34 seconds. By the way, he achieved the exact rating of 3,000 by winning his first 4 games. Let's see what he goes to after this. Miao Yi, a respectable 2,700 rating. That's pretty cool that she got her rating up so high so quickly.
Yep. Just by winning. Actually, who did she win against?
I believe she beat Artyom because Artyom doesn't have any wins yet.
Right.
And let's see if Artyom gets his first win. Unfortunately, he is down a piece, but he's only got 4 seconds. So he's down a piece and he's down on time. Reza, we've not talked about Reza Mahdavi much yet, but Reza looks to be getting, I believe, his 2nd win of the tournament. And we're hoping for the best for Artyom to get on the board. Actually, that's Reza's 3rd win. I apologize.
Yeah, that was Reza's 3rd win, and it's a very hard field. It's a very tough one to even score a half point here, Mike. I mean, even if I was going to play in this field, I was not confident myself because all these kids, they are just monsters. I mean, they're too fast, and their blitz skill is just top notch. Not to mention about their mouse skill, because you have to combine all of this skill to be able to have like quite a high rating like Yagiz here or like Zemlyansky.
They're not playing old man chess. They're not winning games in simplified, boring style. They're actually winning with a lot of panache. Irene, by my count, we've seen 4 rook sacrifices in just the games we've covered. So chat, let us know if we're going to see more rook sacrifices. Let's take a look at the game between 2nd and 3rd place. We've not seen a full game yet by Reza Mahdavi, who's got 3 wins out of 5 on a plus score against Ivan Zemlyansky, who continues his charge in 2nd place. I believe Yvonne has only dropped that one game to Yagiz. Yes, in fact, Yvonne got 4, Reza's got 3. And here we go.
Yes, so this is the quite a famous variation in, I think, the Hungarian variation with this taking d4 with the queen, and then yeah, at some point black will play queen a6 and try to exchange the queens like that, because black has quite a pair of bishop that he can try to rely on. And yeah, e5, this is interesting because the idea of bishop d2 is to open up with the knight. There's some sort of like a semi-discovery that might happen, but of course the a2 pawn is hanging, so this is not the time to do it yet. And probably after king b1, now it is the time for black to play queen a6. And yeah, he just did it. So I just called all the move, right? Yeah, so
That's awesome.
this is pretty much what you should do as white and black in this variation.
That's amazing. I would not have seen queen a6. You obviously knew this idea. Willingly giving yourself doubled pawns. I think one of the best examples of this is the opening game in Seven Deadly Sins of Chess, Rosenthalis Apple. I've covered this game so many times, but it shows you some piece trades are worth injuring your pawn structure. And Irene, you found it right away. The B file is open. The bishops are going to come to life. And in fact, by getting the queens off the board, better chance of black being able to play D5. And if anybody out there is a Sicilian player, you know, if you can play D5, you're always at least equal, often better. And I think black wants to go for it. Rook F8, computer maybe preferred castling. I'm not sure.
There might be a mouse sleep all around. Maybe Ivan was trying to do some short castle, but he touches the rook first. Okay, this is not an on-board tournament, yeah, where you have to touch the king first. But yeah, I have no idea why rook f8. I thought castle would be more natural, and maybe he's planning to play f5. So instead of d5, f5 is what he chose in order to open up the diagonal for the bishop on c6. And probably since the b file is open right now, at some point black will try to utilize it and then doubling up the rook or something, and now rook b8 is already there. And yeah, this looks actually fun for black to play with the 2 bishops. I always prefer 2 bishops over a knight.
Yeah, and the center pawns, I think, are going to be mobile, which is going to give those bishops more space. It could be that black ends up proving us to be a genius because the king might become an active fighter. It's always kind of a touch and go situation. Does white have enough material to make the king feel a little bit unsafe, or does the king belong in the middle of the action? So far, the king looks reasonably okay. By the way, Irene, you probably don't know this, but according to US chess rules, you can touch the rook first to castle. However, I believe it says in big bold-faced caps, would not recommend. But I think you can, unless they change the rule. But kids, adults, anybody out there, don't do it, okay? Because in FIDE, I'm pretty sure you can't do it. And certainly on Chess.com, you can't do it.
Yeah. I think in general rule, you have to touch your king first to castle. Yeah, and yeah. But on ChessKid or on Chess.com, also, I mean, yeah, if you touch the rook first and move it, it's not going to be castle. Yeah, you have to play with the king. So, okay,
Right.
what are we
I feel
here
bad
on
even
the
mentioning
game?
the USCF rule. Yeah.
It's okay. It's good to know that USCF has the same rule as FIDE.
I think in this position, the black pawn wants to come down the board and help rip open the king and get rid of your one major weakness. However, there's a little bit of a touch and go spot with the knight, but I'm not sure the knight has any terribly great moves. Remember, if the knight goes to c4, the rook can just take it because that pawn is pinned. So in fact, the rook just moved over because knight g4, I guess, wasn't that useful of a square for the knight.
Yeah, I would believe so too. And I like your idea with playing a5, a4. We have a double pawn on the a file, so we want to trade at least one of them to make the structure a little bit better. And now king e6, going forward, because I like the idea of knight g4 as well.
Yeah, I think he's also preventing knight to d5 because you would take and give away the rook for the 2 minors.
Right, yes, you don't want to trade one of the bishops, of course. And now rook h4 is, a mistake. Oh, rook d6 would have been a nice move because of knight f5.
Yeah, absolutely. Computer finds this really nice move. Rook takes, because when the bishop takes, the rook is hanging over. If the king takes, knight f5, as Irene pointed out, would have forked the king and the rook on h4. So that's a tough move to find there, because think about it. d6 was guarded twice, so it's a double deflection and not quite found. So Black gets the rooks off the board, and Black is going to be able to push this pawn. And once the pawns get mobile pawns plus bishops is often a winning combination. So I'll take Black here. These double isolated rook pawns have not factored into the game at all, which just shows the genius of that queen trade on a6 that Irene found.
Yeah, and now f5, your ideal Mike is already on the board and it's ready to trade the pawn on b3 by playing f4 next. Yeah, this dynamic of the two bishops will always be Black's advantage till the end, and especially White has a very advanced pawn on h5, which doesn't really look good at the moment because it can be attacked at some point. And yeah, but with the centered knight on d5, White can try to hope that the position is better for him. And actually f5 is a mistake now, and Black is now crumbling.
Yeah, it looks that way.
Wow.
And, Yvonne has no time to know this, but if Yvonne can hold this game, I'm having reports from my field reporter that Artyom, who is winless, is currently beating Yagiz. We're not going to skip over. We're going to monitor that situation. So Yvonne needs to just hold this position, even though he's much worse as well, and he might be able to catch up in the standings. But right now, his bishops are doing nothing. His pawns are falling. He's also lower on time. So can Reza upset the apple cart and finish off this victory? It could be a big log jam at 4 points if that happens.
Oh my gosh, 95, and now it's just a piece of White, and wow, Reza is on to his next victory. Now everything is over for Ivan, and he resigned.
Yeah, and
wow,
we did not get a chance to see, but Artyom did get his first win against Yagiz. White goes 3-0 in that round. And yeah, that makes things a lot more fun because the battle for first is now very much on. And remember, the battle for second is just as important because first or second gets you to where you want to be, which is Sunday action. That is the knockout version. 2 players will advance from this group of 6. And Irene, before we go to break, let's talk about what just happened. Yagiz still in first place, but partially because second place faltered as well. Yagiz has 5 wins and 1 loss. And Irene, what do we have for second place?
We have Reza Mahdavi, and he just keeps winning on the second section of the tournament. And sharing the second place with him is Ivan Zemlyansky. And we have Zokit on the 4th place with 3 points. And Artem Bardik, thanks to his win against Yagiz, now he is on 1 point out of 6. And Lumioi also, she's having 1 out of 6.
That's right. All to play for. And even though, Zokit is sitting down there in 4th place, remember, it's a double round robin. And he's got enough games against the top table leaders where he actually still controls his own destiny. So we've got 4 rounds left. We're going to go through all of them, our longest section, when we come back from this break. Don't go anywhere. The ChessKid Youth Championship under 16 division, as we call it, the 2034 World Championship preview. I'll be back with Irene Sukander after this break. Don't go anywhere.
See to the future, so basically understanding what my opponent will play.
The ability to fly.
Be immortal, so I could do chess and do other stuff.
Teleportation, because if I'm in a situation, I can just get out of there and go to, a vacation.
It would be the ability to time travel so I can reverse any silly blunders in my previous games.
It would be having engine in my brain.
Reading minds would be interesting.
It would be the ability to read people's minds.
I think I would much prefer cricket.
Bowling, leg spinner, and cricket.
I guess ice skating, but if it's an actual game, probably rock, paper, scissors.
I would pick the game basketball.
I would play football.
Probably football.
I'd probably pick basketball because I really enjoy playing it with my friends.
Miguel Tal, because he sacrifices pieces and plays attacking chess.
Probably Magnus Carlsen. He's really unpredictable about what he's going to play. He plays all the openings.
Probably Magnus Carlsen. He's really strong, obviously, and he was proven one of the best chess players in chess history.
Garry Kasparov, because he created new ideas that shaped modern chess. Probably Hikaru because he's a blitz like God, and he's like really aggressive style.
Mihai Tal because of his aggressive play.
My favorite player is Hikaru Nakamura, and he's hilarious in his videos, and he's amazing at bullet.
Magnus Carlsen, simply just because of his dominance in chess right now.
Welcome back, everybody, to the conclusion of Group A of the ChessKid Youth Championship Under 16 Division. FIDE Master Mike Klein with you. Some people call me Fun Master Mike. Irene Sukander is joining me and helping me a lot with the chess. I need it. But you know who doesn't need a lot of help is Yagiz. Now, Yagiz did drop his first game, Yagiz of Turkey. However, he still leads the standings. He's still trying to be the wire-to-wire winner as he was last weekend in the semifinals. The fourth youngest grandmaster in history and the highest-rated 12-year-old ever. Can he finish it off? What do you think, Irene? Is Yagiz going to qualify again for a Sunday showdown?
Well, he's definitely the favorite of the group still, even though he just lost. And this is quite a deja vu for me because also last weekend he lost to Ethan Fang and Megan Pargo, where both of them didn't score any point yet. So it feels like, yeah, he falls onto the same cycle again when he lost to a player that hasn't got any points yet. So hopefully he can bounce back. And now all the players in the group scored one win at least. We can see a very tough competition for the top two.
That's really interesting analysis. And although he doesn't want to make things interesting, he has done so, as you said, by losing to the previously winless Artem Bardik, as he did last weekend against Megan Parago. But he still got 8 out of 10 last weekend. I wonder if he's trying to beat his own score from last weekend. He's on 5 out of 6. He's going to need to run the tables here and win 4 out of 4 to get to 9 out of 10. Here we see him playing against somebody who's tied for second place, Suyarov of Uzbekistan. We have a very similar game to one that we just looked at, Irene.
Yes, except that it was Miaoyi who played knight bd7, knight b6, and now c6 is actually a more traditional approach in this position. Bishop f5 is inviting bishop d3 to come over. So this is still pretty much a cosplay structure that that's been played for many centuries.
Yeah, in fact, we might get a transposition because if the bishop takes the knight, which it didn't, but if it had, the knight could have still gone to b6. I don't think it would have in this particular position, but typical idea in the Carlsbad is to go after this c6 pawn by getting your pawn somehow to b4 and then to b5. And yes, we have a ChessKid lesson about it. But if I don't get 10 ChessKid references in, Irene, I don't get paid. So I've got a little bit of a ways to go.
Well, those references are very helpful, and we might be seeing it on this game with this minority attack, if I may add, with all these pawns going with a4, b4, and so on. And this is a very typical idea on how to proceed in this position as white. But here, Yagiz tried to play in the center by putting the knight on e5. Now, things are going to be quite interesting. Queen e7, probably this is the preparation for black to do just a long castle, and using the fact that since the pawns on the king side have been moved, he is just going to attack on the king side, because I think queen e7 is definitely the move to play long castle next one.
Yeah, but long castle also invites b4, b5. Now, Yagiz is taking his time, or at least he did take his time. I was wondering if he was contemplating knight takes g6 at all. I don't think it's enough. I did look at it really quick, but he plays a3, which might look like a rather anodyne move, but it actually helps inhibit castle and queen side, because then we know b4 is coming. So a3 is a very clever move. It looks like it does nothing, but it kind of tells your opponent, hey, if you castle, I'm going to try to checkmate you.
Yes, and now after this move f4, I like white's position better, because it looks like black is playing a bit too safe by trying to offer all the traits with bishop d6, knight d7, and so on, and it is giving time for white to play the f4 move, which is a very important move to play. And now, having a better center, white can just break open, and having the pawn on e5, white is standing better in this position.
Yeah, the knight wants to get to d6, and if the knight captures, then the knight acquires the e4 square, and if the pawn captures, the knight acquires the b5 square. Either way, that knight is getting to d6, and that's what white wants. White wants to plant a knight on one of those outposts. Now, if the knight takes and your knight goes to e4, there's some chance it will get to f6 as well, so black takes back to at least have one pawn in the center, but I believe we're going to see the move knight to b5. That is where the knight wants to go. The only reason not to play it there, actually, I don't know. I guess there are some positions where you spend a lot of time getting your knight there, and then black just plays knight c8 and trades it off. So white does have to be a little bit careful. I think white wants to play a5, Irene, force the knight to any square besides c8, and then play knight b5.
Yes. And now, okay, queen d7 has to be there because d5 has to be protected after a5. But, Yagiz switch his mind, and then now he is combining those ideas and now playing knight b5, getting ready for knight d6. And now the fact that the bishop is already on e1, it can be transposed to b4, having a better diagonal. And also the pawn on h4 is a liability because the rook on h8 has to keep guarding it, and black is no longer able to castle now. Otherwise, black is going to lose the h-pawn.
That's a good point. How about this for white, though? How about just rook c1? Okay, the knight cannot hide. It's funny that the knight just has to sit there, and the rook will just take the knight, and it's not a sack in any way at all, because the knight would get to the square d6. Instead, he sacks the other rook.
Yeah, you cannot take it with the queen because of knight c7, and you have to take it with the pawn, but then there is queen takes g6, and we'll see lots of attack with the bishop on a5 or bishop on b4, depends on where the king goes. So you have to take it with the pawn now, and after queen g6, where does the king go? If you play queen f7, this might be the best move that black will come up with, but you're also leaving the protection over the c7 square, and in the end, white is going to enjoy an extra piece. So black is totally under lots of trouble.
He just didn't even take the rook.
Yeah, he couldn't.
He
Yeah.
just didn't even take. Okay. By the way, that's another rook sack if you're counting at home, but it's only an exchange sack, so maybe we'll count it as a half. But could the best option really be to not take anything? Actually, Zokid just said, I don't know what I was thinking, but I'm resigning because even though the knight can be captured, G6 is hanging, but E6 was going to happen. Let's get rid of the center
E6
screen.
is also, yeah.
E6 was the crushing move. And
Yeah.
I don't want to play this position any more than Zokid wanted to play this position. That really hurts his chances for finishing in second place. However, he did lose at least to the tournament leader. I'll bet you there's still games going on. Ivan Zimlansky, who is still very much in the fight for second place, has a slight advantage here over the, can we call him the upset king? I mean, he did beat the first place guy, Artem Bardik, and we've got mobile pawns here for white. That's probably why the computer favors white by a smidge.
Yeah, well, this is going to be quite a long game to go still, even though both of the players are still, I mean, they have under a minute each. Yeah, although white is looking better because of the pawn on e4 and f4, but I think black has all the means to defend the position. So this is going to be quite an interesting endgame with all the major pieces still on the board. Queen g6, and now, whoa, this trade over is, I don't know. I don't like trading my queen when you are having an inferior position. So white should be even better now.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that you got to be really careful which pawn you push because a blockade might get set up. I think black traded queens, thinking that g5 would totally wreck the pawn structure. But it appears that that question is still very much in doubt, whether or not white can hold these pawns. So we had to capture the pawn must capture. And black wants, in the worst way, to get his king to f5 before the pawn can push. Because if he does, it's actually a little bit hard to remove that king. And neither player seems to appreciate the importance of the f5 square. Instead, black is actually, I don't know, playing for a win. I'm not sure. b5, maybe.
Well, black has to play some counter attack at some point anyway. Black cannot play in the king side, so and the only way to keep going is on the queen side because black has more pawns on the queen side. I thought instead of having the rook on e4, the white can just put the king on e4 and then use the rook to play around the back rank at some point. But now having the king on d5, I just like black's position, although probably it's still losing for black, but at least black is giving a fight.
I hear you. And I know earlier I said active defense is the way to go. I thought blockade might have been the way to go. It's up to you whether or not you want to do the famous Magnus Carlsen quote. You know, as commentators, we're required to say that I don't believe in blockades. But as Magnus said at the World Championship.
Fortress, actually.
Fortress, yes. Yeah. But these pawns are mobile. And Magnus was right. Thank you, Magnus. The fortress, well, black didn't even try for it. Wouldn't it be funny if this rook got to f5? That'd be like Tetris. I don't know, Irene, if Tetris and chess could be the same game.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that's totally useful information. If you're also playing Tetris, you can combine those two skills, chess and Tetris. Oh, what is it? You just give it up like that, and then now white is up a rook? Oh,
yeah, and okay. I think if you'd gone the other way, the f-pawn would be mobile. So if we go back, my guess would be if you try this move, then f7. So there wasn't much that black could do. But mobile pawns running down the board. And yeah, those are hard to stop. So if we go back, does that put a conclusion on round 7? Yeah, it definitely does. By the way, Irene, I've got a great game to show students when you're talking about mobile pawns coming down the board. That's Kramnik Svidler, Dortmund 99. I don't know. It was covered in this book. Can I sell John Nunn some books? Understanding Chess Move by Move. There's a fantastic game where Kramnik gets 2 pawns on e4 and d4, e5, d5. Okay, but just buy the book. Okay, not my book, but it's I've definitely used it for ChessKid before. Okay, we know where to go next. We have to watch Ivan versus Yagiz.
Yes, definitely. Yes, and both of them. Okay, thanks to actually, I thought Yagiz just crossed 3,000 again, but apparently he's now back down to 2997. But okay, it's just a matter of time until he goes back to 3,000 and over. So we are seeing another Sicilian. This is my favorite mic because I love to commentate a Sicilian game because it's just going to be fun. Players are going to attack each other and we'll see fireworks on the board.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see it. This game has huge implications for the tournament. Yagiz has 6 out of 7. Ivan is tied for second with 5 out of 7, tied with Reza Madavi, who also won that previous round. So looks to be a 3-person race for the 2 advancement spots. Yagiz on 6, Reza and Ivan on 5. This game matters a ton for the final standings, and it is going to be a Sicilian. By the way, Yagiz has actually achieved a 3,100 rating on Chess.com, the youngest ever to do so. No surprise there. He's got a lot of youngest superlatives in his name. And what do you see early on, Irene, in this game?
Well, I see the move g4 has happened on the board, and this is a very unorthodox way to continue the game, and especially with the queen in front of the f-pawn. Usually, if you want to put the queen on f3, you should push the f4 first, but now we are seeing a totally unusual way of playing the knight of variation in Sicilian. And as I mentioned, g4 is coming up as a trendy move these days in many variations. Let it be a d4 opening or c4 and the English opening, or even now in the Sicilian, of course, g4 is a trademark of Ivanchuk back in the day. Whenever he plays against Sicilian, he always tried to play g4 on the board. So it is now kind of like the English attack position in the Sicilian. And as we know, the English attack is always very, very interesting, because you can see the knight on c4 is going to attack the king on b1, but black also has the king on e8, and we know also that it is maybe better and very wise for the king to just stay in the center, because wherever the king goes, there will be always some weaknesses. So probably black is just using the time to accelerate more attack on the queen side.
One of the things I find annoying if you're black is that you never know when the bishop's going to take the knight, and often you take back with the pawn, you have to switch the attack to the b file, but white gets to decide when to make that capture. Now, of course, black can capture with the queen, in fact, probably should, because of all that firepower, but white is being very coy by not telling black when or even if he is going to capture the knight. So very interesting game. I know it says that white is a lot better. However, there's a lot of pieces bearing down on the white king. You can see this knight wants to maybe come to a4 and cause white to take and start opening up some of those lines against his own king.
Yeah, exactly. And these type of moves are going to be scary for the black's king if he ever decides to do some castle on the king's side, because, well, white is ready to attack and open up the position with the g6 or with the f6. Either of those pawns will emerge forward. And now rook f1, this is a very complex position for a blitz game, because anyone is attacking here, like the knight on c4, the knight on b6, now the knight on a4 attacking b2. So maybe it is now time to take some of the knights. I don't know, takes the knight on a4 or takes the knight on c4.
Yeah, we're going to see double isolated rook pawns again. And in fact, I think this fits black's plans perfectly. After pawn takes you in a tempo, this pawn's coming to the square a3. And so all of these captures are going to open up something. Now, critical decision. If you take with the pawn, you're going to switch the attack to the b file. You already have a knight lined up. But if you take with the pawn, knight takes might hold. Really interesting. You could even take this knight first. I have no idea what to capture. And if I see knight takes b2, I'll fall out of my seat. But luckily, I'm still in my chair. It did not happen. So we had queen takes instead. Knight a5.
Ooh,
okay.
Knight a5. Yeah, so this is interesting, because now you can take c3 and take e4. Exactly. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone misses that, because it looks like a very normal move. You can just keep
what are you
capturing
the queen, I guess?
Yeah, queen takes e4, of course. Yeah, queen takes e4.
Yeah.
But
okay.
But computer doesn't like it for white, yeah? So there should be something going on in this position then.
I don't know what's not to like, but okay. Maybe you're just opening up the center too much and the queen tries to stay on the board. I'm not sure.
Yeah, just play queen f2 maybe. Queen f2 with the idea of rook e1. Okay, so this is still on the current position. Oh, bishop takes e4. But yeah, probably this is the wiser decision anyway, because you don't have anything attached to the white's attack. And now queen h3, you just have to move the queen on the saver square.
Yeah, and Yagiz, I've noticed, has taken his time a couple of times where sacrifices are possible. For example, if you take and take, he might be looking at various queen moves because the bishop's pinned, but you have to save the queen. You don't have time to play b4. So he gave it a look, but with 30 seconds left, I think just keeping the extra pawn. But that's probably why he drained about 10 seconds on his clock there. f6, here comes the counterplay, and this queen is glued to the rook. Is that important? I think it might be.
It is important. Maybe FG and then rook d6 because the c8 rook was hanging.
Nice find. Yeah, the queen would have been overworked. Nice find by Irene there. But instead, the files did not open. Now the bishop provides a little bit more cover to this pawn, but it also weakens the long diagonal that it was on. Oh, man, I'm thinking maybe some sacrifice was possible, but I'm not sure.
No, that is totally possible. But okay, the c2 pawn is also quite hanging there, so white is not very comfortable in delivering the attacks that way because white also has to defend c2 pawn at some point. But now looks like white is better, but I still don't see how white is better.
Knight here was played, but is e4 a problem? But then rook e1,
No.
who knows?
Yeah, I don't believe knight b7. I don't believe knight b7. Yeah, now white is just losing. It's a piece down for white.
White's losing, but man, you have 18 seconds and not get mated. That's basically Yuzha's goal here. Queen c7, very nice move. We call it old man chess, although it feels weird to say that about a 12-year-old. Get the queens off the board and you will not get mated. So this queen, she has to stay on the board, and I think you have to prevent black from castling as well. But if the queen goes back to b4, queen c5, more old man chess, and that king looks like he's getting himself out of danger here.
Bishop f8, I think it is also a very wise option. And then on bishop c5, and next move you can just castle.
Yeah, Yuzha's cold-blooded. He didn't even need to trade the queens. Now the rook might go to g1, but the king will probably just shepherd himself to a safer file, which he does. 13 seconds. Ivan's got 8.
Oh wow!
Mate
E3
on
is
the
there.
board, but
E3 is
E3.
there. Yeah.
Trading
Unit is
bishops and even
E3.
losing a pawn.
Yes, exactly. And now it should be mate somewhere. The rook will come down to the back rank, probably to the second rank, and attacking all these. Oh, rook here. So many attacks going on the board.
Knowing these kids, there's going to be some sort of stylish finish. There you go.
Yep, mate in one. Okay, so there was a nice finish by Hughes, and he is now on 7 out of 8, and yeah, still leading alone the field.
There is, and we'll cover those standings in just a minute with 2 games remaining. But this is a battle to get a second point. So Artem versus Miao Yi, and looks like 2 minor pieces, definitely better than the rook. But everything is consolidated to one side of the board. And well, if we get a bishop and knight mate, we got a ChessKid video on that. But anyway, we're a long way away from that. And actually, this bishop, oh no, the bishop hung the mate. Poor mate. I was just going to say, you have to stay in touch with the h7 square. You have to stay in touch.
Oh my
and,
gosh,
and
yes.
Unfortunately for Miao Yi, she forgot. And Artem gets his second win of the tournament. A little bit unfortunate, but that's what happens when you've only got a few seconds left. All right. Wow. Exciting.
Yeah, that was quite heartbreaking actually, yeah, because well, black is better, although I don't see how black is going to win, of course, but you just have to keep an eye on the h7 square for sure in order not to get mated like that. But well, okay, we are now on to the round 9. And who are we going to look at?
I was going to say, we're going to look at Yuj versus Reza. And the good news for Ivan fans and Ivan family and anybody else that's on Team Ivan, Reza also lost. So Ivan lost the tournament leader, which, you know, it happens. But also Reza lost, and that's really important because that means Ivan and Reza are still tied for second place. And we're going to look at Yuj versus Reza. If Reza can somehow score any amount of points here, that would go a long way toward him trying to finish in second place. And I'm looking at our cross table here. Have Reza and Ivan already played 2 games? I think they have. Okay, so they're not going to play head-to-head in the final round. But okay, let's get back to this game. This is becoming a pretty popular opening for us today. Any differences, Irene, that you see in this position versus the other example?
Well, the bishop is definitely the significant difference here because we see in other games the bishop just stays on e7 or d6, but here Reza chooses a more advanced variation by playing bishop b4 and then exchanging the bishop with the pawn on c3. And usually this position is going to be better for white, of course, because if you have this type of structure for white, usually you still have a bishop on c1, and therefore the bishop on c1 is going to be quite a liability because the pawn the pawns that white has is just going to block the bishop. But now the bishop is gone, and white, I think, has a slightly better center, although it's still a long way to go to really say that white is better in this position. But I like what I'm seeing here. Both players are playing quite a classical positional chess.
Yeah, a long way to go. Thanks for that analysis. A quick reminder for everybody wondering out there, what's on the line. The top two advance to the knockout tomorrow. We've got another group stage coming up at 1 p.m. Eastern time. That's in about 2.5 hours. We're going to see some players from the Western Hemisphere and, just different geographic locations, a lot of the players. Two of them will also advance in case of a tie today for second place, assuming it's a two-way tie. The two players will play 2 games of 3+1. And if still tied, we'll go to Armageddon. So if you're wondering about the tiebreak structure, that is what we will see. Or we might just have 2 players advance without tiebreaks needed. So, all right, back to the game. The queen side is opening up. The rooks are occupying, and we have A5 coming up on the board for white whenever he gets the chance.
Yes, exactly. And now black has some homework to do, like how to connect the rooks and where to put the knight, where to put the bishop on c8, because those moves, those pieces, they have to move at some point. And g6 was the first one that was played by Reza. I'm not yet sure what is it going to do, because you don't want to put the bishop on f5 anyway, and probably you just want to have a better back rank, maybe, because h7 is undermined by the bishop. Or maybe you are trying to play c4. Yes, this is the idea actually, to avoid bishop f5 and then occupying that diagonal. So this is quite wow. These players, these kids, they are very good at tactical and offensive chess, but they are also very good in positional understanding. This is what amazed me.
Yeah, I'm glad you found c4, because all I saw for g6 was, oh no, now the queen is tethered to the pawn because bishop takes g6 is always a problem. But black always had it in his back pocket that his plan was to play c4. Great analysis. And now the bishop is biting on rock, as we say. And black, I'm not going to say black's up a pawn, obviously, but white probably has the weakest pawn on the board in case we get the queens off the board. Black has this idea of b4 at some point, which will create a protected pass pawn. So black has a little bit more of the, I can never say this word, dynamicism. I never know which one's right. But black has the fun. We're going to say black has the fun in this position.
Yeah, in the long run, in the endgame, black has more pawns on the queen side, so he can definitely plan up on something we call with breakthrough. That is to sacrifice a pawn in order to get a pass pawn. So I would assume white has to watch all the time the breakthrough of b4 because c4 is going to be the pass pawn. So although also in other principle, you shouldn't put the pawns on the same square as your bishop and something like that, because the root of the pawn chain on a6 and d5 in the long run, in the endgame, is going to be quite a weakness, but we are still a long way to go from there. So what I suggest for black here is you should try not to trade too many pieces, because if you do trade the light square bishop, because this is important to eliminate the light square bishop for black.
Yeah.
As for white has to keep the bishop.
Right, knight f8. I guess black was sufficiently afraid of the bishop taking and having the knight versus bishop. I don't think it's that clear, because the bishop would have acquired a very strong square on f5, but that's one of the classic issues in chess, bishop versus knight. And black said, I don't want any part of that. I don't want your knight to sit on e5 for the rest of the game. So black decided to trade. And I like it because, again, black has the breakthrough ideas. If you have the one trump in a position, you don't want to give your opponent some sort of offsetting advantage in another way. So I think knight f8 was pretty smart. Very, very good practical decision.
Yes, I like black's position better now, because again, black has always this type of saving in the future that he can always bank it in the endgame to play b4 and then the passman of c4, and then white has to keep an eye on it all the time, and it is going to be quite a miserable waiting time for white to not be able to play his ideas because of this idea. Not to mention the pawn on a5 is also weak, and Reza is rightfully choosing to play knight b8, knight c6 in order to target on a5. So this is a very, very clever and instructive endgame that these kids are showing right now.
I was going to say a minute ago, the knight wanted to relocate from d7 to c6, but couldn't because it had to keep touch with e5. But when the white knight went on a sojourn, so did the black knight. And so it was a little bit optimistic, Yagiz, thinking that his knight was going to get to b4 because he actually improved his opponent's knight. And yeah, this is a big problem for white. White has all of the defending to do, and white only has 15 seconds to do it. This would go a long way to Reza, hopefully for him, punching a ticket to the Sunday knockout phase, but he's got to find a way to convert this position. And you know what? Practically speaking, if you don't do anything dynamic, if you just lean on your opponent, you use that clock advantage. So if I'm black here, I'm moving the pieces around kind of quasi-aimlessly because white's not doing anything. And now Yagiz says, I'm going to play e4. I'm not just going to sit back and let you beat me on the clock.
Yes, exactly. I think both players really know what to do in this position. One has to wait and one has to try to keep attacking and find some compensation. And now we have double rooks on the e file. Actually, who's attacking who? Because I really like this idea by Yagiz playing f3 e4. He's actually giving some counter attack on the center, which he has to do it anyway. Knight e3 is a question mark. I think he would be better with e5 because now there might be some sacrifice with knight d4. And wow, what is going on?
Yeah, I want to call that a rook sack, but it really wasn't because the pawn just kept taking things. I think the black pawn took 3 pieces in a row, and now black is up a couple of pawns in this position and just captured another pawn. 0.7 seconds for Yagiz. He's about to go down 4 pawns. Can he find any kind of miracle fork or anything to get back in this game? I don't know. We're going to find out. Doesn't look good, though. Uh-oh. Now he's down a piece.
Uh-oh. Wow, what an important win by Reza Mahdavi because, well, he is in the contestant for the top 2 right now. That was a really important win for him. And how is Ivan doing right now against Lumiere?
Well, we're taking a look at Ivan's game. Ivan just checkmated right as you said that. You're the good luck charm. So both Ivan and Reza win. Reza perhaps slightly more improbably by beating the tournament leader. So they both advance to 6 points out of 7. Yagiz stays on 7. And we only have 1 round to go. It should be mentioned that Yagiz has not qualified for certain because if Reza and Ivan both win and Yagiz loses, there'll be a 3-way tie. We'll have to go to some special tie breaks. Now you might say, hey, perhaps you're not looking, Fun Master Mike, because Yagiz is playing the bottom seed. But Yagiz has already lost to the bottom seed once. The bottom seed now is actually Miao Yi. But anyway, Yagiz, has had some trouble, as you mentioned last week, against Megan, and this week he's already lost to Artem, who had 0 points at the time. So Yagiz has to score any sort of point, half points fine, to qualify. Yep. And Irene, Ivan and Reza, both trailing by 1 point.
Yes. Anything is still up for grabs. This is what's interesting in the last round. And probably, come on, I'm trying not to pick sides here, Mike, but I cannot help but supporting my fellow female player. And Mioi is just one of the brightest stars in the chess world these days. And I just cannot wait to see how she's going to shine in more important tournaments in the future. And I don't think it is an overstretched when you call it in the beginning that this is actually the pre-World Cup in the future, like, I don't know, in 10 years to come, maybe all these players that playing in the under 16 right now, I'm sure they're going to be in the top 10 in some of the years to come.
Certainly, it's hard for her on her first Chess.com tournament getting her feet wet, but she does have a game of consequence in the last round. She could play spoiler. Now, in an homage to you, Irene, I've chosen this game. It turns out the 3 players of consequence are all playing different games. So to set the scene, one more time, Ivan has white against ChessKid. Ivan is currently tied for second place. Reza has black against Artem. Reza is tied for second place. Yagiz needs some sort of point in this game. A half point will do just fine for him to advance to his second straight Sunday knockout. So we'll stay here, but we're going to keep an eye on all of the games. And this is a repeat from round 1 when Miao Yi played this ready setup. And I believe she played an early G4. And here we have it one more time. So she's familiar with these positions.
Well, she didn't play G4 in the earlier round. She played a more conventional way in the queen side. I mentioned about G4 being the trendy line these days. She didn't play it, but now she actually followed my advice, I think. Right. She prepared it with Rook G1 and then pushed the G4 pawn. And there are actually many ways for white there. You can sacrifice the pawn on G4 right away, or you can prepare it by playing Rook G1 like what Miao did. This is actually a very dynamic approach for to proceed this position. And I like how she she's approaching the last round against the tournament leader, a very dynamic and very aggressive way. Bishop e2 is not up to the spirit of the position, but I think black still is going to try to defend in the king side. So probably I would play some move like h4, h5 immediately without wasting time with bishop e2.
Yeah, and it's actually, it's kind of fun. She can have some fun in this final game, right? She can, I'm not going to say go nuts. It seems a little bit pejorative, but she can just have some fun. And, there's nothing to lose. You're sitting on 1 point and you're playing the tournament leader. Throw some pawns at your opponent, which, by the way, is the theme of the position. But also, you can be a little more carefree in your attacking here. So the knight's going to be forcing the queen back. And we always say an attack on the flank is best answered by an attack in the center. And I wonder, actually, Yagiz has done this at least twice we've seen so far today, where he blows open the center with a lead in development. And he might be willing to do it again here by playing a move like d4, even if it's a pawn sack.
Yes, exactly. Well, you have to. Ooh, you spotted, Mike. D4 just happened on the board, and I think I like how Yagiz is approaching this position as well. D4 breaking open the center. The king is still on e1, and there is no way for the king to do any castle in the future soon, because the queen on b1. Where does the queen go even? And yeah, this is the game of time, not only because this is a blitz game, but also white is striking an attack with g4 and black is striking an attack on d4 right now. And who is going to strike first? He or she is going to be the winner. Knight e4 is on the board. At some point, this knight might jump over f6, but I don't know whether it is the time to do it now. It looks like it. What about knight f6 takes, rook g7, and you're attacking on h7, something like that. It might be quite an overstretch. It's just an idea in the time being, because black has so many moves like d3 to stop the attack from b1 to h7, for example. But yeah, you should just bang this idea first and then use it maybe in the future.
Fascinating. My on-field reporter, aka chess.com/events, is telling me that Ivan has a huge advantage over ChessKid, but Reza is in trouble against Artyom. So Yagiz may not even need a point in this game, but there's no way in the world he's hoping that his opponents help him out. He wants to score at least half point. We do see d3 on the board, and that is what we call a wedge pawn. With the knight coming to c2, I assume the bishop has to go back to d1, but those pieces are looking very sad. Wait a minute, the knight would actually be hanging.
Yeah, the knight is hanging, and the bishop on e5 is also hanging.
Yeah.
Everything is hanging. The b4 knight is also hanging. Wow, like this d3 pawn is opening up all sort of attacks of the minor pieces. So, but black is not doing well in this position according to the computer. But I just cannot find what is the right move. Should you throw in knight f6 maybe, or what? Something like that, and then take on b4.
Yeah, I don't know. All 4 minor pieces were hanging. That's not a good sign for crazy blitz level analysis. But white is still doing okay after all of these captures. Notice that white has not overcommitted herself on the king side. So even though the attack is not working, the pawns are not yet weak. So the bishop's going to go back to some square. Okay, f1, probably going to g2. And this pawn on d6 may end up being more of a weakness than a strength in the endgame, but I stress may. Wedge pawns are very hard to decide in the moment whether or not they're cramping or whether or not they're weak. Right now, I guess you could say it's cramping.
Yeah, well, I like black's position better now. I think Miaoyi will have to pay the price for not connecting her rooks in the future, and I don't like this move b5 because now it stops the idea of long castle. Let's say white is doing long castle here. a6 is there. A6 is ready to open up the a file. So I don't really like white's position now. It's quite loose, and all the pieces are not connected to each other. So although the computer says this is still equal, but I think in the long run, yeah, black is standing better.
Yeah, I guess she was trying to say, I want to give you a backward pawn and get the queens off the board, and then I'll have this constant pressure on the A file. But Yagiz is under no obligation at all to get the queens off the board. She's got 13 seconds left. No pawns have been traded, but they're about to. And as the game opens up, as you pointed out, the white king could be weak. If it castles queenside, A6 might happen. So now she's trying to build a shelter for her king. And I've watched a lot of survival shows on TV. It is not good to build your shelter out of twigs. And right now, that's all she's got left. I think this pawn might come forward, although f4, I guess, is her saving grace. And you got to watch out for a mate on g7 one day. So he's just building up slowly, using his time advantage, using his pressure. She sacks a pawn to get her king out of the middle. But a6 anyway. Wow, I didn't see that coming.
Oh, that
Look at
that's
that.
not really. I thought he would have just captured the pawn on f3, but okay.
Yeah,
This
simple
is
chess.
yeah. Yeah, the
Is he gonna get
G7,
mated
this
on G7?
G7 square is exactly, you spotted, Mike. Like G7 square is always something that Black has to keep an eye on. And Queen C7, Rook E6. I think Miaoi is about to. Oh no, I called it too soon. I thought she's going to beat the tournament leader, but now with all this, almost like an Alacon's gun, tripling
Yeah,
your
she's
major
gonna play
pieces in one
H7
file.
or yeah, Alekine's gun. She thought after king takes rook h1 was something, but he took the correct way, and he's going to be mating here or winning the entire army. So Yuj qualifies in style, and I'm looking at the other
And
games. Reza has lost.
Ivan is
Ivan has won.
Yes, Ivan has won. Yes, exactly. So Ivan and Yus and Ivan, they are the top two of the group one in under 16.
Yeah, when no tie breaks are needed today, that was as exciting of a final round as we get because every game was of consequence. Take a look at the final standings there. If you didn't know how to say his name before today or before last weekend, please get to know it now. Yuj or Dagush. 8 points out of 10, the same score, Irene, when you covered his group play last week in the under 13. He got 8 out of 10 in the double round robin. Ivan Zemlansky, second place with 7 with a critical last round win. And Reza, despite beating Yuj in the penultimate round, finishes on the outside looking in with 6 points out of 10, still an awesome plus score. And Irene, what do we have in the bottom half there?
Well, we have, you mentioned Reza Mahdavi on the 6, and then okay, I have to learn how to pronounce his full name, but I believe it's Muhammad Zokit Suyarov from Uzbekistan, and then Artem Bardik, and also Liu Miaoi. So Zokit has 4.5, Artem Bardik has 3.5, and Miaoi unfortunately only gets 1 point out of 10.
Yes, and just to let you know, in all my communications, he was signing his messages Zokid, so we've been shortening his name, and probably that's what all of his buddies call him as well. So there we go. That was some really, really exciting chess. That was the under 16 Group A. There is going to be a Group B coming up in about 2 hours' time. Both Irene and I will be there for it. We're going to see some pretty famous names in chess, including the world's newest IM, the youngest IM in history, IM elect, Fausti Oro. His name means Mr. Gold in Espanol, and we're going to see if he plays some golden moves. There's going to be some other top players too, but that might be one that you're most familiar with just based on what he has done in the last couple of days. He just earned his title a couple of days ago. Pretty exciting stuff. Irene, any final thoughts today before we close the show?
No, this is pretty much what I expect from the Group 1, and congratulations for the winners, but their journey is not done yet because tomorrow we're going to see the knocked out format of the tournament, and that will decide who is going to win the under 16 group. But before we do that, in a few hours, Mike and I will be coming back for the Group 2 coverage, where yes, we have Faustino Oro, we have Abhimanyu Mishra, we have Andy Woodward, and a lot of other popular names in the chess world.
That's right. The world's youngest grandmaster ever and the world's youngest international master ever, Mishra and Oro. Going to be very exciting stuff. $10,000 on the line, $3,000 for the winner. It was a great first half. We're going to come back in about 2 hours for the second half. 6 more players are going to play another double round robin of 3+1. All right. Well, thank you, Irene. And in those next couple of hours, if you're looking for something to do today, why don't you try your bullet chess skills? Why don't you put them to the test? You can compete in today's community bullet brawl arena and win a diamond membership. Anyone is eligible to throw their hat in the ring and prove their speed chess prowess. All you have to do is join the community club on Chess.com and register for the arena. Use the command !CBB, Charlie Bravo Bravo, as we would say in the airline world. Use that command in the chat for all of the details. I'll see everybody in a couple of hours. Irene will be back. The coffee will get warmed up again. And the second group for the ChessKid Youth Championship coming up at 1 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central Europe. We'll see you then.
Thank you, and see you again soon.